The question no one asked, the alien ship landed gently on the training grounds of Earth's Cultural Academy. She had trained for years to meet humans, studied their languages, their gestures, and even tried Earth food. Her name was Lyra, a young diplomat from a peaceful planet called Bellora. She believed she understood humanity, but as soon as she arrived, she noticed something strange. Humans smiled, they laughed, they helped, but they never looked her in the eyes. Not just her. They didn't look at most aliens that way. Their eyes always drifted, either respectfully down or thoughtfully up. It wasn't fear. It wasn't shame. It wasn't pride either. It was something else. Lyra sat in the academy garden the next day. Birds chirped softly. The sun warmed the stone bench. And there she saw a human, alone, reading a book. He had no uniform, no translator badge, and didn't seem interested in showing off. She walked over. "Can I ask you something?" Lyra asked softly. The human looked up and nodded. "Of course." "Why do humans always look away when aliens speak? Even when we are being polite or friendly?" she asked, tilting her head. "What are you hiding?" The man closed his book slowly and looked into the distance. For a moment, Lyra thought he wouldn't answer, but then he said, "Do you really want the truth?" She nodded. "Then follow me. I'll show you." Lyra blinked, surprised. "Where are we going?" "To the edge of why we look away," he replied, standing up. She followed him. The tone in his voice wasn't cold. It wasn't angry. But there was something heavy in it. They walked through the academy grounds, past the buildings, past the training halls, and finally toward a large metal gate she had never seen open before. Lyra noticed others stopping as they passed. Some humans lowered their heads. A few placed a hand over their hearts. None looked them in the eye. She felt goosebumps on her skin, and Bellorans didn't even get GOOSEBUMPS out at the gate. 2 silent guards opened the doors without a word. Beyond it was not a building. It was a field. A grave field. White markers. Hundreds, maybe thousands, all the same size. All in perfect rows. And in the center, a single black pillar. Lyra gasped. The human walked her into the field calmly. He didn't speak until they reached the pillar. They were diplomats, soldiers, scientists, farmers, volunteers. Every one of them died in places far from Earth, helping others, protecting others, some from war, some from sickness, some just to bring water or light. Lyra felt her chest tighten. "Humans don't look away because we're scared," he said softly. "We look away because when we remember, it hurts. Because sometimes looking at others reminds us of those we lost trying to help them." Lyra stared at the names engraved on the pillar. So many human names. Why didn't anyone tell? "Me this?" she whispered. "Because we don't use it to brag," he said. "It's not something to be proud of. It's something we carry." Lyra looked at him. This time, he didn't look away. He held her gaze, not with anger, but with truth. Quiet, heavy truth. And for the first time in her life, Lyra didn't know what to say. She stood there, surrounded by silence, by names, by stories. And she finally understood. Humans looked away, not because they were weak, but because they remembered. Too much. Asterisk the stories behind the stones. Lyra stood still as the wind gently moved through the quiet field. The white markers stretched far into the distance, each one identical, yet she now understood they were anything but the same. She turned to the human beside her. "What's your name?" "Dale," he replied, simply. "Were you one of them?" She asked quietly. He shook his head. "No, but I carry their memory. Everyone on Earth does." Lyra walked among the markers, her fingers brushing one at random. A name was etched on it, Liam Carver. Beneath it, A date and one word. Aegis IV. What happened there? She asked. Dale didn't answer right away. He walked beside her, then stopped at another marker. This one here, he said. That's Kira. She volunteered to deliver medical supplies during a plague outbreak. She wasn't even a soldier, just a nurse. She didn't make it back. Lyra blinked hard. How many worlds have you? Too many to count, he said. We were asked to help. So we did. She looked at him, her voice soft. But the galaxy doesn't talk about this. Why? He smiled faintly, but there was no joy in it. Because stories of sacrifice make people uncomfortable. It's easier to see humans as violent, dangerous, death-worlders. That's simpler than facing the truth. What truth? That we bleed for people who forget us. Lyra stepped back slightly, not out of fear. Out of guilt? She remembered how her own academy on Ballora described humans. Strong, yes, but reckless, rough, always talking about war and violence. No one had taught her about the peace missions, the rescues, the silent good. Lyra moved toward the black pillar again and ran her fingers along the cold metal. Is that? Why you stay quiet? Why you look away? Dale nodded. It's not shame, it's respect. We look away so we don't lose control, so we can keep walking forward. And if no one sees the truth? She asked. Then it's up to the ones who do to speak. Lyra looked down at her translator badge, then slowly removed it. I don't need this to understand anymore, she whispered. Dale raised an eyebrow. Why's that? Because for the first time, I hear what hasn't been said. They stood in silence. Suddenly, a soft chime echoed from her comb. A message from her delegation, reminding her that she was late for the Alliance conference. She turned to leave, then stopped. Will you come with me? Dale hesitated. To the council? Yes, they need to hear from someone who remembers. I'm not a speaker, he said. You don't need to be, she replied. Just bring the truth. For the first time, he smiled. A real smile. Lyra felt something shift inside her. Something she hadn't felt before. Fear. Not confusion. Respect. And with that, they left the field together. A silence between them, yes, but no longer empty. It was filled with meaning. A silence that could change everything. Whispers in the council hall. The Grand Council. Hall hovered high above the planets. Surface, its dome of glass reflecting stars from 10,000 systems. Inside, voices from dozens of species filled the chamber. Some chirped, others echoed, some buzzed like living wires. But all shared one thing in common. They spoke as if Earth wasn't listening. Lyra walked in with Dale at her side. Her fellow. Ballorans turned to her in surprise. A few frowned at her companion. One leaned close and whispered, Why did you bring a human? Lyra didn't answer. She walked straight to the center platform, the speaker's circle, and pressed her palm to the console. The room dimmed as the lights focused on her. Honored Council. She began, her voice calm. I came to this assembly with questions, and I found answers none of you ever shared. Whispers broke out across the rows. A tall member of the Vadran race, thin and draped in flowing silks, stood. This is highly irregular. You are not cleared to speak today. Lyra ignored him. I asked why humans look away, why they avoid eye contact, why they speak little of their past. She looked around the room. Do you know the answer? Or did you choose not to know? A murmur rose again. Dale stood silently, just behind her, hands clasped behind his back. Lyra tapped her wrist device and projected a hologram. Into the air. Rows and rows of grave markers. Names, worlds, missions, sacrifices. I walked through this place yesterday, she said. I saw the names, not soldiers, not conquerors, not monsters. She paused. I saw healers, builders, teachers, people who died on alien soil, our soil, bringing help where we asked for it. The room fell quiet. Lyra continued, "You call them Deathworlders. But not once did any of you ask why Earth keeps its head low, why they do not boast, why they avoid your praise and attention." She turned slightly to Dale. "I found the answer standing among the dead. Humans don't look away to hide. They look away so we don't see the tears." One council member, a gray-scaled being from the Tracar Union, clicked his claws. "And what does this prove? Humans are still aggressive, still unpredictable. We cannot ignore that." Dale stepped forward for the first time. "We are unpredictable," he said calmly. "But so is fire, so is light. You forget the good we've done, because it doesn't scare you." The council stared. "You remember our weapons, but not our doctors. You remember our warships, but not the ships we lost trying to protect yours." He looked around the room, and for the first time, no one looked away. Dale spoke again, slower this time. "We didn't come here to ask for recognition. We came to remind you that silence isn't weakness. It's the sound of carrying weight." Lyra could feel it in the air, the change, not anger, not applause, but understanding. Some of the council members lowered their heads. Others, finally, looked human beings in the eye. For the first time in a long time, Earth's silence spoke louder than its weapons, and the galaxy listened. Asterisk eyes opened, voices hushed. The council hall remained silent long after Dale's words faded into the air. Even the usual hum of background translators paused, as if the entire galaxy had taken one collective breath and forgotten to let it out. Then, slowly, one hand rose. It belonged to an older member of the Ilari race, a thin, gentle being with skin like aged bark and eyes clouded with time. His voice, though soft, carried across the chamber like wind through leaves. "I remember," he said. "I was just a boy when Earth sent aid to Ilari Prime. We were drowning in red rain, the crops failed, our children starved." He looked directly at Dale. "A single Earthship arrived. They gave us seeds that could grow in the wet. They gave U.S. warmth. They didn't ask for payment. They left without a speech." Others stared at him, surprised, but another hand rose. A young member of the Atron species stood, her head feathers twitching nervously. "We were at war," she said, "on our moon base. Earth sent medics. One was killed protecting my brother. W.E. never told anyone." More hands followed. One by one, stories poured out like rain after a long drought. Missions, sacrifices, silent arrivals, quiet departures, no medals, no flags. Just humans, doing what needed to be done. Lyra watched it unfold, feeling a strange pride swell inside her. Not for herself, but for a truth that had waited too long to be spoken. Beside her, Dale stood, perfectly still. After a long pause, the council chair finally rose. He was a towering figure of stone and light, a being from the Ashari core, and his voice echoed like deep metal. "For too long," he said, "we allowed fear to shape our memory of Earth. We saw only the fire, and not the warmth." He turned to Dale. "You have reminded us of something we lost, not just about humans, but about ourselves." Another silence followed, but this one felt lighter, like a storm had passed. The council chair gestured to the chamber guards. "Let it be recorded. Earth's quiet acts of peace will no longer be forgotten." Then he turned back to Dale. "What would you ask of us now?" Dale blinked. "Nothing," he said. "We didn't come for favors. Just the truth." Lyra stepped forward again. "But I ask something." All eyes turned to her. "Teach it," she said. "Tell the new generation the whole story. Not just the danger, not just the battles. Tell them about the hands that healed, the backs that carried the weight. The council chair nodded. It will be done. Lyra felt her chest rise with something. New, not pride, not relief. Hope. As the council recessed, diplomats from dozens of species approached Dale, some hesitant, some curious. They asked questions. They thanked him. A few even apologized. He took it all quietly, offering nods and few words. When the chamber emptied, Lyra and Dale walked out into the starlit plaza. The night air was calm. She looked at him. You could have stayed silent. I almost did, Dale said. But you asked, and that was enough. They sat together under the stars, not as alien and human, but as two beings who saw something others didn single quotes T. And now the galaxy did 2. Asterisk echoes across the stars. The news spread faster than anyone expected. Within days, Lyra's speech and Dale's quiet truth had been replayed across every major network. On moons, space stations, and colony hubs, alien citizens watched as silence turned into understanding. Not everyone believed it, not yet, but something had started. A shift. On Bellora, students at Lyra's old academy watched the footage in stunned silence. Many had grown up being taught that humans were fierce, chaotic, unpredictable. None had seen this side, the quiet, gentle force behind their power. Some cried, others felt shame, but most felt wonder. On Earth, things remained calm. The humans didn't throw parades or celebrations. They didn't brag or claim victory. Instead, they went on with their work, building, fixing, helping, preparing. Just as they always had, Dale had returned to his small cabin on the outskirts of the academy grounds. He didn't check messages. He didn't watch the feeds. He simply sat by his window, sipping tea and listening to the wind. Until a soft knock came at the door. It was Lyra. She smiled gently as he opened it. I hope I'm not disturbing anything. Not at all, Dale said. He moved aside to let her in. She looked around the simple space. A few books. A framed photo of a team, all in Earth uniforms, most of them smiling. Some of them were gone now. She could tell. I didn't get a chance to thank you, she said. For what? For trusting me enough to show me the truth. Dale nodded, but didn't respond right away. Instead, he walked over to a shelf and took down a small metal box. He opened it slowly and pulled out a pin, shaped like a simple Earth insignia, barely larger than a fingernail. This belonged to a friend. He said he saved a shuttle full of alien children during a station fire near the rim, earned half his suit doing it. Did he make it? Lyra asked. Dale shook his head. But none of them forgot, and neither did I. He handed the pin to her. Lyra held it carefully in her palm, like it might break. Why give this to me? Because now you carry the story. 2, Dale said. And stories like his deserve more than one voice. She closed her fingers around the pin, her eyes shimmering. Outside the cabin, the sky had begun to darken. Stars peeked out one by one. Something's changing, Lyra said, looking upward. Dale stepped beside her. Maybe it always was. It just needed someone to say it. In the days that followed, more embassies reached out to Earth. More allies came forward with old records, forgotten missions, buried truths. Whole history files were reopened. Words like respect, debt, and honor began to appear beside humanity's name. Some still whispered warnings. Some still doubted, but the silence had cracked. And in the quiet that followed, the truth was finally being heard. The message carried forward a week later. Lyra found herself standing before a new crowd, this time on her homeworld of Bellora. The council amphitheater was filled with scholars, students, and diplomats. The same hall where she once studied now waited to hear what she had learned. She took a breath and stepped forward. "This is not a story of war," she began, "but of weight. A weight carried in silence, by people we thought we understood, but never truly listened to." Behind her, a large screen displayed the same white markers from Earth's memorial field. Then the black pillar. Then Dale. Lyra continued, "We were taught to fear their strength, but we were never shown their grief, their patience, their pain, or their loyalty." The hall was still. "We asked why humans look away," she said softly. "The answer is simple. They've seen too much, given too much, lost too much." She paused and opened her hand. The small pin Dale had given her lay in her palm, glinting in the light. "This was given to me not as a gift, but as a reminder that behind every strong hand is often a heart that still remembers what it had to hold back." The silence that followed wasn't one of confusion or protest. It was reflection. And slowly, people began to nod. When she finished her speech, many stayed behind, some to ask questions, others to share memories they had once buried, quiet missions where humans had saved them, kindnesses no one had recorded, truths that had waited in the dark. Back on Earth, Dale returned to the memorial field. The wind moved softly over the markers. He placed a new flower at the foot of one. No words, just the gesture. He didn't know the person buried there, but he knew what they stood for. As he stood, a small group arrived behind him. He turned. It was a mix of species: Baloran, Atron, Tracar, Ilari, and more. One stepped forward. A young boy with silver skin and a translator still clipped to his shirt. "My mother told me what you said at the council," the boy said. "She said you reminded the galaxy." Dale nodded. "We brought flowers too," the boy added. "May we place them?" Dale stepped aside. They moved through the field, gently placing tokens of respect: petals, beads, folded paper stars. It wasn't Earth custom. It didn't need to be. It was shared now. Something had started. Not loud, not grand, but real. Later that night, Lyra and Dale stood together by the garden where it had all begun. "No speeches this time," Lyra joked. Dale smiled. "Good, but one question." "Go ahead." "What now?" Dale looked out over the stars. "Now we keep walking forward. And this time, maybe, the galaxy walks with us." They stood in silence, but unlike before, it wasn't a silence of things unsaid. It was the silence of healing. A new way to see weeks turned into months. Lyra traveled from system to system, not as a diplomat this time, but as a witness. She spoke in schools, peace halls, even war tribunals. Everywhere she went, she carried the same story, the one she first heard in silence. Beside a field of white markers. It wasn't about victory. It was about remembering. Each time she told it, she held up the tiny earth pin Dale had given her. She never explained it. She just showed it. And somehow, that was always enough. Soon, others began sharing their own symbols: a worn patch from a rescue uniform, a cracked visor from a crashed shuttle, even a single boot, scuffed, heavy, real. The galaxy, once loud with judgment, had learned the value of quiet truth. On Earth, Dale remained in his small cabin. He didn't chase the headlines or answer every call, but every now and then, a visitor would knock. Some brought questions, some brought thanks. But one day, a young human cadet arrived with something else: a small metal case. Dale opened it slowly. Inside was a fresh pin, newly made, but bearing the same insignia as the one he had given Lyra. The cadet stood straight. "We were asked to carry this forward, sir." A new tradition, quiet but lasting. Dale nodded once. "You know the meaning?" The cadet smiled. We don't forget. Far away, on the moon of a distant outpost, a group of young aliens gathered around a screen. Their teacher, a kind-eyed Baloran, played them a short film. It showed no battles, no speeches, just a slow walk through a field of white stones. At the end, the camera panned up to a quiet human standing beneath a tree. The subtitle read, "Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is remember." The students didn't speak. They didn't need to. Back on Billora, Lyra stood beneath the stars, alone, at peace. She looked up into the sky, knowing Earth was somewhere far beyond her sight. She whispered, "We don't look away anymore." A soft wind passed her cheek like an answer. She turned, stepped into the quiet, and vanished into the night.